Imagine waking up tomorrow to the news that a single financial decision, one you've been patiently tracking for years, has just reordered the entire global economic landscape, transforming the fortunes of millions overnight. This isn't the plot of a science fiction novel, this is the palpable, electrifying tension surrounding the Iraqi dinar and the very real, albeit complex, movement towards its potential revaluation. For over 2 decades, the narrative of the Iraqi dinar has been one of immense potential, shackled by geopolitical instability, internal conflict, and an economy overwhelmingly dependent on a single resource, oil. But the story we are seeing unfold in 2025 is fundamentally different from anything we have witnessed before. It is a story not of mere hope, but of tangible, structural change initiated by a government master plan that is finally moving from theoretical blueprints to concrete, on-the-ground implementation. The Central Bank of Iraq is no longer just talking about monetary reform. It is actively engaging in a multi-pronged strategy to detach the Iraqi economy from the decades-old dollar-dominated framework and assert its sovereign monetary identity. This is not a simple flick of a switch. It is a meticulously orchestrated surgical operation on the nation's financial circulatory system. The primary weapon in this operation has been a relentless crackdown on the illicit use of the US dollar in all domestic transactions, a move designed to staunch the hemorrhage of foreign reserves and force the formal financial system to rely on the Iraqi dinar for all internal economic activity. This has been coupled with an aggressive push for a unified national electronic payment platform, which brings every transaction, from a government contract to a local market purchase, into the digital light, making it traceable, taxable, and transparent. This digital leap is arguably more significant than any change in a numerical exchange rate because it builds the very infrastructure that a strong, stable currency requires to function. It dismantles the shadow economy that has crippled the state's ability to collect revenue and fund its ambitious development projects. Furthermore, the government's master plan is intrinsically linked to the success of its broader economic vision, which extends far beyond the oil wells. We are witnessing unprecedented investment in agricultural revival, aiming to restore Iraq's ancient status as a breadbasket and reduce its massive food import bill. Simultaneously, there is a concerted push to develop a manufacturing base and even a tourism sector centered on the nation's unparalleled historical heritage. These sectors cannot flourish under a weak currency that makes importing machinery, technology, and expertise prohibitively expensive. A stronger dinar is not just a bonus for investors. It is a strategic necessity for the nation's desired economic diversification. The recent agreements with international powerhouses and neighboring countries, settling old debts and forging new trade partnerships in currencies other than the dollar, are not isolated incidents. They are deliberate, calculated steps to reintegrate Iraq into the global economic fold on its own terms, reducing its vulnerability to external financial pressure and creating a sustainable demand for the Iraqi dinar beyond its borders. This is the master plan in action, a synchronized push on monetary policy, digital financial infrastructure, and real economic diversification. The movement you feel is the grinding of these massive gears starting to turn in unison, a sound that is far more convincing than any rumor you will ever read online, and it signals a fundamental shift that every single person watching this needs to understand deeply, because what happens next will redefine everything you thought you knew about this investment. To truly understand the gravity of what is happening now in 2025, we must dissect the critical, and often misunderstood, relationship between the exchange rate and the government's master plan. A nation's currency is much more than a medium of exchange. It is a reflection of its overall economic health, stability, and international credibility. For years, the official exchange rate of the Iraqi dinar was maintained by the central bank through the daily auction, selling billions of US dollars to create an artificial peg. This system, while providing short-term stability, became a sieve for capital flight and corruption, draining the country's foreign currency reserves without generating corresponding productive economic growth inside Iraq. The current government's strategy is a radical departure from this model. The goal is to transition from a dollar-backed stability to a stability derived from the intrinsic strength of the Iraqi economy itself. This is why the recent fluctuations and the tightening of access to dollars, while creating short-term hardship and confusion for the average citizen, are a calculated part of a larger, more painful healing process. The government is effectively forcing a detox from its dollar dependency. By making it incredibly difficult to use dollars for anything other than legitimate foreign trade and essential imports like medicine and electricity, they are creating a compulsory demand for the Iraqi dinar within the country. Think of it this way: if you are a business that needs to pay salaries, buy local goods, or settle taxes, you now have no choice but to acquire and use dinars. This surge in internal demand is a fundamental prerequisite for strengthening the currency's value organically. It is basic supply and demand being enforced by policy. Simultaneously, the other pillar of this strategy is to increase the supply of goods and services that the dinar can purchase, thereby increasing its utility and perceived value. This is where the development projects under the government's master plan come into play. The construction of new ports, railways, and residential cities creates a massive internal economy where the dinar is the sole currency of transaction for labor, local materials, and contracts. This creates a virtuous cycle. Investment in infrastructure boosts GDP, which increases tax revenues, which allows for more investment, all of which is conducted in dinar, making the currency stronger and more credible. The ultimate objective is to reach a point where the central bank does not need to desperately defend a specific exchange rate. The rate will naturally find a stronger, sustainable equilibrium based on a diversified, growing economy with robust internal demand for its currency. This is the difference between a quick fix and a lasting solution. The RV, or revaluation, that so many discuss is not an event that can be scheduled. It is the final outcome of this successful economic transformation. It is the moment the market itself recognizes the new, stronger fundamentals of the Iraqi economy and prices the dinar accordingly. The government is building the house brick by brick. The RV is the day the world acknowledges it's a solid, valuable property, and this crucial distinction separates the informed observer from the hopeful speculator, because understanding this process means you can now identify real progress versus distracting noise, which is the single most important skill you can have right now as we navigate this complex and unprecedented financial journey together. A journey that requires patience and a sharp eye for factual developments over fictional promises. So, where does this leave you, the observer and potential investor, in this intricate and high-stakes financial drama? The landscape of 2025 demands a new level of discernment. The era of relying on cryptic guru codes, unverified airport meetings, or sensationalist headlines is unequivocally over. That old information ecosystem was built on a paradigm of waiting for an external, magical event. The new paradigm requires you to monitor the implementation of a slow, methodical, and internally driven economic process. Your focus must shift from seeking confirmation of a date to understanding the milestones of the master plan. Instead of asking when, the critical questions are now what and how. What is the latest progress report on the central bank's digital payment platform? How many small and medium-sized enterprises have been registered and brought into the formal banking system this quarter? What is the actual, on-the-ground progress of the major infrastructure projects outlined in the federal budget? These are the true indicators of momentum. The government's own published documents, statements from the Central Bank of Iraq to international financial institutions like the IMF, and reports from credible global economic analysts who focus on Middle Eastern development are your most valuable resources now. These sources are dry, complex, and lack the excitement of a breaking news alert, but they contain the only genuine data that matters. This is where you separate signal from noise. The noise is any source that promises guaranteed, life-altering wealth overnight or pins the entire event on a specific political meeting. The signal is the gradual but consistent data showing a reduction in dollar auctions, an increase in digital dinar transactions, and the successful completion of phases of a new power plant or oil refinery. Your strategy, therefore, must be one of educated patience and continuous verification. The potential reward of a successfully reinstated currency is historically significant, but it is matched by the profound risk of misinformation and the sheer complexity of the undertaking. This is not a typical Forex trade, it is a geopolitical investment in a nation's rebirth, with all the delays, setbacks, and bureaucratic hurdles that such a process entails. Your greatest asset is not the quantity of dinars you hold, but the quality and accuracy of the information you use to inform your perspective. The master plan is publicly available, the government's statements are on the record, and the economic principles at play are timeless. By anchoring yourself to these pillars of factual analysis, you navigate this journey not as a speculator lost in a storm of rumors, but as an informed participant watching a nation meticulously lay the groundwork for its financial future. The movement is indeed real, but it is a march, not a sprint. It is built on parliamentary votes, central bank regulations, and construction cranes, not on secrets and codes. To stay on top of this evolving story with the most accurate, original, and guideline-compliant analysis, you need a source that cuts through the hype and focuses on the factual bedrock. If you are committed to understanding this process at this profound level, then your next step is clear. Do not just watch from a distance, become a part of a community dedicated to factual clarity. This is where you need to act. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss one of our detailed breakdowns. We are committed to being your trusted guide, providing the context and not the conjecture, and delivering the original data you need to make sense of it all. Your informed perspective is your most powerful investment in this entire scenario. Take that step now, stay informed, and let's continue to navigate the truth of this historic financial transformation together.